Hello, I am interviewing Paul Knox. He's my dad, and he's 63 years old. And I have 10 questions to ask you, Mr. Paul Knox. First question, where did you go to school?
I went to school in a little two-room school in a community of Nail Pond, which is located in the western part of Prince Edward Island, in a community near Tignish or near North Cape.
What was your school like?
The school was very small compared to Spring Park School. It only had 2 classrooms, and in each classroom there were only 2 teachers. One classroom had grades 1 to 4, and the other classroom had grades 4 or grade 5 to 8. And students, there was no more than probably 30 students that went to the school, and they came from the community of Nail Pond.
How did you get to school?
Most days we walked to school. My home was about maybe a mile and a half, which would be about 2 kilometers from the school, and we would walk to school and walk home from school every day. Sometimes in the winter, when it was storming, our parents would take turns picking us up by horse and sleigh and taking us to school, and then picking us up after school and taking us home.
What was your favorite class?
My favorite classes in school was math, reading, and recess. Those were the 3 things I enjoyed doing.
Do you have homework?
Yes, we had homework. A lot of the times we had reading a novel or a book, and then writing about what we had learned from the book or about the story. And then we would have math assignments, doing times tables, maybe adding, subtracting, dividing, things like that. Yeah, we had homework like that.
How has life changed on PEI since you were young?
Oh, life in PEI has changed quite a bit since I was young. I grew up in a community that didn't have electricity, didn't have running water like we have in our homes. So at night, when it was dark, the only way we had light in our house was by candles or lamps that had something like gas. It was called kerosene, and we would probably get to bed around as soon as it got dark. It was our bedtime. And the other thing is just cars. There weren't a lot of cars back then, especially up in the Tignish area. So we would use horse and wagon, or horse and sleigh to get us around. But over my lifetime, I've seen roads be paved. I've seen all parts of Prince Edward Island hooked up to electricity. Also seen people with cars that go very fast and are very safe and very affordable to drive.
Okay. Did you ever see a train on PEI?
Yes. When I was younger, we used to see a lot of trains in PEI, and at night, probably somewhere around 8:30, 9 o'clock, the train coming from Summerside. I remember when we moved to Charlottetown when I was probably 10 or 12 years old, at night you'd be outside and you could hear the train whistles blowing. Woo, woo! and you knew that the train was coming back to Charlottetown. And I remember being a little boy and walking along the train tracks and thinking maybe someday when I get older, I'd love to walk across Prince Edward Island on the train line. And as time moved on, the train stopped in PEI, and now where the trains used to run, it's now called the Confederation Trail. So we can get out on the trails and we can drive our bicycles, we can walk, we can hike, and we can drive our snowmobiles there in the wintertime.
Okay. What do you think about the bridge?
I remember when they were thinking of building the bridge, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of concern by many islanders about the change in our lifestyle and the chances of criminals being able to get to PEI or get off PEI quicker. And there was a vote held as to whether we should have a bridge or not. And in the vote, I think it was very close. It was like about 51% of the people said they were in favor of the bridge, and 49% of islanders said they weren't. So the government of the day went forward with building the Confederation Bridge. And I must say that as an islander, having the bridge for maybe somewhere around, I think it's 25 years since we had the bridge, and it's been a real positive move for Prince Edward Island and for me as an islander.
Do you think technology is important?
Yes, I think technology is important. I think technology used properly can make our lives easier. And who would have thought, like 50 years ago, if you said to someone, I'm going to talk to someone into a little box and speak to them on the other side of the world, and maybe even watch a video of someone on the other side of the world without being hooked up to wires or any of that things, they would think you were crazy. But technology like the iPhone, the iPad, computers, robots, all those advances that we've made in our lifetime in technology has been a plus. As long as we continue to use the technology properly, it's a positive thing.
Okay. Do you feel PEI is a better place to live today?
Yes, I think we in Canada live in the best country on this planet Earth. And within this great country of Canada, we who live in Prince Edward Island live in the best place in this beautiful country that we call Canada. So in Prince Edward Island, we've seen over the last few years many newcomers coming to PEI with new ideas, new customs, new ways of doing things. And I guess it's exposed us as islanders to diversity and new cultures, which is a positive thing. And I think by growing together and respecting each other, Prince Edward Island's a great place to live, and it's going to be even better in the years to come.
Do you have any little stories about one or two stories?
Well, I remember when I went to school in Nail Pond, and we didn't have a bathroom in the school, nor did we have running water. That means water you can turn the tap and just fill up your cup. We had, out in the schoolyard, we had an old pump, an old hand pump that we had to make the handle go up and down, up and down, up and down, so it would bring the water up. And that pump was made of steel. And in the wintertime, some of the older kids would tell the younger kids, and I was one of the younger kids at this time, would say, why don't you stick your tongue against the steel on the pump and see what happens? And of course, you would stick your tongue against the steel on the pump, and your tongue would get frozen to the pump, and you would just go crazy. And then you'd have to blow warm air out your mouth so that your tongue would be released, and the older kids would have a great laugh out of that. And the other thing is, I remember one time in school, the way our school was heated, each classroom had a stove, and that stove burnt old black coal, the coal that used to be mined in the coal mines. And we would have to go out to this little shed out behind the school, and we would load up buckets with coal, and then we would bring them in, and one or two students that day would be responsible for making sure the stove was always full of coal and warm for the students in the classroom. So those are some of the stories that I remember about school. But Paul, thank you so much for asking me all these questions and bringing back a lot of good memories. And I wish you much success with your project. And thank you all. Thank you, Paul's teacher, and to all the students for listening. Thanks so much.
And he is 63, and his name is Paul.